Well, hello everybody. Last night Q&A was on. I'd really like to be able to do Q&A shows live as Q&A is happening, but I have no idea how to pull it off the internet so that I can have a live reaction. I've picked two clips from Q&A. Q&A's become a really crap show with a really crap format, and now they've got this new trick where they have free guests, but they put two extra guests they don't tell you about in the audience. And they have media clips and show you media clips and everything. Basically everything designed to make sure you get less and less questions from the actual audience. But anyway, I had my 15 minutes of fame because of Q&A, so I have an affinity with this stupid program and can't seem to stop watching it, even though it's gotten so bad it's not even worth watching. But occasionally it gives a little piece of gold, and this is one of the best bits of gold the Q&A has ever produced in a long time. So I'm going to play this. It's a bit... the next thing I really need to point out is that during this election, I would like to have, as an end result, a Labor Party government in power with a Green safeguard. So I don't want Labor to have a majority government. I want them to be a minority government with the Greens behind them, forcing them to have good social policies. So I'm not rooting for the Liberal Party, but this shows how Labor will lie through the back of their teeth and how they're just as incompetent as the Liberal Party. This is Ed Husic, who's the technology minister, and the shadow technology minister, I've forgotten his name, but he's the nuclear spokesperson for the Liberal Party, and the Labor Party dude gets his ass kicked here, and it's a real enjoyable watch. So I hope you lot enjoy it as much as me. I'll probably up the speed on this just to make it happen quicker. It's a 6-minute clip.
In a nutshell, it costs too much, it delivers too little, and it arrives too late in terms of nuclear. I mean, we're talking $600 billion for 4% of our energy supply delivered in 2040.
Where did you get $600 billion?
And the reality is,
Sorry, if you're talking about policy, where did you get $600 billion
from? They talk about modelling. We can't get the answers to what they just came up with in a brain bubble on gas. We ask them the same questions on modelling. They can't deliver that.
Where did you get your $600 billion from?
And the reality is, you know this is going to cost a stack of money, way more than what you are suggesting.
You know what's interesting? Ed, you started...
The good thing about interrupting is it doesn't make you look awkward.
You know what's interesting is one of your first answers was the importance of facts and evidence. You just said our plan will cost $600 billion. The Prime Minister says the same. The Treasurer says the same. That is just patently untrue. It's up to $120 billion. So my question to you, Ed, and indeed therefore to the Prime Minister and the Treasurer of this country, explain the $600 billion.
So sorry, you seriously...
Explain the $600 billion. They're your numbers. National audience, you are actually saying that the cost of our nuclear program is actually, if you look at the CSIRO, now I think Patricia, you'll agree that the ABC has been big on this, as has the Labor Party, the importance of looking at the capital costs put forward by the CSIRO. If you look at the modern larger plants, the CSIRO says costs, your $600 billion figure multiplies that by 5. That is how dishonest the Labor Party is with this.
So now you actually back what scientists are saying.
Can I just say, you have all the quick tricks you like.
Sorry. I feel very strongly about it. You know, I watched the coalition. I mean, we saw some of this.
Is this your way of getting out of the $600 billion
No, it's
question?
not. Well, my way of answering the question is you let me.
Go ahead. Look forward to it.
So,
I feel like we're in an election campaign.
Sorry, Patricia, I think we are.
It's having that feeling to me.
We saw through the course of when CSIRO, scientists and researchers put forward GenCost, all they had was carping and bagging out by the coalition. Doug Hilton was forced as the head of the CSIRO to intervene. Rarely do you see that happen to defend scientists and researchers. And now, when it's convenient, we're seeing the CSIRO being backed in by the coalition because it suits them right now. So what I'm saying is we should, and the reality...
I'd just like to point out there, Labor's been asked where they get the $600 million figure. By the way, you don't get an answer here. But part of the answer to that question that they give is, so the Liberal Party's using science now, but you don't want to use science when it suits you, which is perfectly fine. But in relation to the $600 billion figure that Labor's come up with for the nuclear policy, which is a lie, it's a straight up lie. But if a nuclear policy gives us secure power for the next 100 years, is $600 billion a bad price to pay? I don't know. I really believe that we need to have a proper conversation about nuclear power in this country. If we're going to be using the amount of power that they say we need, and I don't know whether that's true or not, because I can't believe either side of politics in relation to this. They've done nothing but lie to the Australian people for 20 years on this subject. We need to have a proper conversation on how we're going to supply that power and how we're going to have secure power. The only thing I know about electricity for sure is I'm starting to do the sums on whether it's more economically viable to run my petrol generator to run my house, which is an emergency backup because I live in the bush, than it is to actually buy electricity off the power company. Petrol at just under $2 a litre, and 1 litre used per every 2 hours in my generator. Is that cheaper than buying power off the power company? That's the only thing I really know about electricity. Is I'm starting to think like that. I'm thinking about buying a second small generator that has an automatic start on it, and hooking that up to my water pump, because that will be cheaper to run than me using a power point or me buying solar to run the water pump. I'm working out the economic difference. That's all I really know about electricity. But yeah, where does this $600 billion figure come from? Please remember that Albanese told us we were all going to have cheaper electricity by now, and all I've had is a $1,000 a bill increase in my electricity. But let's not talk about that, because that's just a cost of living crisis. It's not something throwing me back into poverty.
People trust the scientists more than they trust you and I, frankly. So we shouldn't be bagging out the scientists. On the cost, you seriously are putting to the Australian public the notion you'll build 7 nuclear reactors for the cost of $120 billion, where we've not got the industry to do that here, and you've just had someone who has assessed the cost of some of these projects, including the UK, where they are blowing out in price and time, and you seriously will stand and tell the people, look at their face and say it's only going to cost $120 billion. Come on. I mean, if you want to be serious about it, you've got to be fair income about the costs.
So the problem with your argument, Ed, is you just talked about the importance of the CSIRO. Our assumptions, our costing assumptions, our capital costs are comparable to the CSIRO. In fact, they're a little bit more conservative. And therefore, the up to $120 billion is accurate. Okay, so explain your 600. If you cannot explain it, just
let me just inject another question.
If $120 billion to do, why don't you get the private sector to do it instead of using taxpayer dollars?
I'll answer that question.
Well, just, Ted, where we have seen nuclear, now this goes to what you said, our expert, it has blown out quite significantly, right? Look, in the UK, does that worry you?
It would worry me if we hadn't done our homework.
I think they did their homework too, though.
Well, the blowouts happen.
Well, like it does happen, even best intentions.
So with all due respect, I did ask the question whether or not total system cost modelling had been done. The answer
we haven't done total system cost
They haven't done that, right? So now, when it comes to what different countries do, I have personally gone myself 10 different nations that have nuclear as part of a balanced energy mix. I've met with politicians, with system engineers, with economists to understand why they seem to be getting their energy prices down, and Australia now is paying among the highest prices in the world. Now, one of the key reasons is they like balanced energy mix, which is why we reject all eggs in one basket renewables only. Number 2, they say you need that 24/7, always-on baseload technology, which is why we say you can't have only weather-dependent, intermittent renewables. You need a baseload. If it's not coal, as that retires from the system, it should be zero emissions nuclear energy. Then when it comes to the timeline, when it comes to the costs, this is all based on the most thorough research, including with me personally, getting the best experts globally and in Australia to peer review, check out.
Never believe a politician when they say that. Remember, Labor got voted in on giving us cheaper power and having the best modelling of any opposition policy in the history of the country, is what Albo said. But turns out that modelling was wrong, and less than 3 years later, when asked about that modelling, well, 3 years to the day almost, Albo just turns around and goes, that was their modelling, not ours. Like he never said what he said 3 years ago. We just got to throw that away. But I'm very angry about my electricity bills. I've never been angry about electricity bills like I'm angry now about my electricity bills. And that's because I feel Labor lied to me. So if you live in the city, vote Green. If you live in the country, vote for whatever you think's best for your seat. I live in Bob Catter's seat. I don't agree with his policies, but I really like the brand new hospital in Atherton. And that's what an independent, we need your vote to get policies passed. That's how people like Bob Catter can get a brand new hospital built in Atherton. Thank you, Bob Catter, even though I don't like your politics.
Our policy. And the best in the world say that the assumptions we are using, whether it be cost, whether it be timing, is absolutely on the money. On the money because of international experience, and also the fact that Australia right now is a nuclear nation. Right. We have a nuclear reactor only about 50 kilometres from here.
It doesn't generate energy.
Yeah, we don't have a nuclear industry in the same way, though. Let me just give the
Can I just a couple of things. I think that it's just a bit dangerous to suggest that nuclear energy is necessarily cheaper energy. There's not any clear correlation. So there are some places where there is nuclear energy and it's cheap. There are some places where there is nuclear energy and people pay very high prices. Even in the United States, you can find examples of both of those things. So you can't draw a clear line and say that even once you've done...
In a nutshell, it costs...
So that's the first clip from Q&A that I wanted to show you.
That we're putting in place.
Sorry, I'm also bad at this. I'm not really good at using computers, and I'm basically just brute forcing everything. I know there's better ways to do what I'm doing. The reason I showed that first clip was basically my brain's wired wrong and I get right off on politics. I get right off on the entertainment of it, the bullshit of it, the stupid arguments they have, the crap that they talk about. There's just something wrong with the inside of my brain. I personally think that was one of the best moments Q&A's had in over a year of television. And my personal opinion of it is that this dude here just had his ass kicked on the nuclear policy, but it also pointed out how politicians on both sides of the fence, I'm like I keep on saying, I consider Labor to be just as much a danger to this country as I consider the Liberal Party. I don't trust the Liberal Party to put in a nuclear policy. That's what my friend says. And she's dead right. I don't trust the Liberal Party to turn building nuclear power stations into anything but a rort for their mates to make billions of dollars, meaning we will get substandard nuclear power stations. That's dangerous. So we do need to have a big talk about nuclear power stations, because as an environmentalist, I personally think that we need to have them. And before we go ahead and build them, we need to put the safeguards in place so the politicians don't turn it into a rort for their mates. We need the safeguards in place to make sure that the cement used is the absolute best in the world, that the steel used is the absolute best in the world, that everything used is the best quality available on the planet, so that we end up with safe, reliable nuclear power stations. The cost of what nuclear power stations cost really doesn't mean shit. Give you a case in point, Microsoft has just paid a company to recommission 5 Mile Island in New York so that they can have enough electricity to run their data centers in New York. That's how much power data centers use. If you think electric cars use a lot of power, start thinking about how much a data center uses that makes your cloud work. Right? Just imagine this. Every time you spend $1 on Bitcoin, you're actually spending $2 worth of electricity that somebody subsidizes. I don't know who. I don't know how that electricity is paid and who pays for it. I saw a really good thing the other week on YouTube explaining how we subsidize the electricity bills of the data centers for places like Amazon and Microsoft and Google, because that's the deals that they make with the government when they set up their data centers. I don't know how true that is, and I really don't have time to look into it. Moving on from this clip, okay, just a quick note. I really don't know what I'm doing with how to make a video, how to edit a video. I basically brute force everything, and everything I do on this computer, there's better, more efficient and better ways to do it. But I'm semi-illiterate and my brain doesn't work right, so I brute force it until something sort of works. So I completely stuffed up the second half of this video. I'll work on that for the rest of the day, but I've spent 3 hours on this and my dog's really needing to go for a walk, and she rewards me so much with making my life happy. I have to attend to that, and I know that's ridiculous to most people. So you didn't get a second clip. And as always, if you like this clip, please like and subscribe. And never forget, if you're entitled to redress, you'll probably win a civil lawsuit. Go and see lawyers who specialise in this. If you're in Victoria, Arnold, Thomas and Becker is probably one of the best set of lawyers to go and see. Most lawyers who deal with this subject will give you a free hearing. So it won't cost you anything to go and tell a lawyer your story, and for that lawyer to give you a legal opinion on your chances of winning a civil lawsuit. And also, it's not an easy road, but that's just the way things are. Please like and subscribe. Have a safe day. I'll make a video on that second Q&A clip later on, but like I say, my dog really needs my attention at this time. Goodbye.